Welcome to Empowered to Grow, the podcast. I am your host, Hanan and Basha, the business doctor. Following our conversations with empowered women who woke up one day and consciously claimed, I am more than enough, I am worthy, I am empowered to grow. And along their empowering journey towards realizing their own potential and their quest for growth, they became a beacon of hope and guidance for others. May you also find your inner power to grow. Hello again, everyone, and welcome to the Unchartered Discussions episode of Empowered to Grow podcast. This is your host, Hanan and Basha, and I'm still continuing the very empowering conversation with Christina Gerakiteys. Hi to Christina again.
Hello, and thanks for the continued conversation. It's amazing.
Thank you. Christina, I know that for you, and I think we touched a bit on it in our previous episode or previous discussion, failure, success, redefining. And I know that you're a speaker, author, lecturer, and a trainer. And I know that the book is all about that. It's about reframing failure and success. So let's delve a bit deeper into that. How do you define first success and failure, or failure and success?
That's the question we ask in the book. So the book's titled Celebrating Success One Failure at a Time. And I've actually interviewed 7 entrepreneurs in the book to gauge what their sense of their journey from failure to success, failure, success has been all about. And I think one of the important things that we asked in the book was, what is your definition of failure? Because failure can be devastating.
Yeah.
And, you know, we're very big on the rhetoric around fail fast, fail
forward,
get back up again. It's fail forward. But to have that sense of failure is quite devastating. So the question that I often ask, particularly when I'm in front of a group of entrepreneurs, is, when was the last time you failed? And then so we get people to express their last sense of failure. And some of the failures that have left huge marks on these people are remarkable. And then I ask them, so what's their definition of failure? What's their experience of failure? And then I ask them to recall the last time somebody important failed. And how, important being whether it was a mentor or whether it was somebody famous or someone they aspire to be. It doesn't matter who it was, but it was someone who means something, of importance to them. And they were making up all these excuses about, but it wasn't really a failure. It was da-da-da. And I go, right, now turn that rhetoric onto yourself. So, and we often, if we see somebody fail, then we often feel empathy. And you might mention it to 1 or 2 people, and then the next day you forget about it. But if it's us that has failed, we continue to think about it and continues to torture us. So it was really important for me to capture that essence in the book. And we went through, discussing with these 7 entrepreneurs what their sense of failure was, and then how they overcame that sense of failure to then succeed. And there were really interesting points of view around that. So one of my colleagues says, well, I just never took no for an answer. So even though I thought I'd failed in making a connection or doing something, she said, I never took no for an answer. So hence failure led to the success, because she was told no, but then she got back up again and kind of, moved forward with it. It was really interesting. I had one person that I interviewed in the book, and she said, oh, I don't fail, and I don't have a definition for failure. But then when we went and delved a little bit deeper, she went, oh no, I do have this sense of failure. So, if we can define our own sense of failure, particularly as females, because we take it to the, it's like when you're going for a job interview and a female will and there have been studies that have proved this. If we're asked a question, can we do something? Okay. We'll go, oh, can I? Do I know how to do that? Can I? And that hesitation. And you kind of go, yes, I think I'm pretty sure I could do that. Ask the same question of a male, and the male goes, yep, I can do that. And it's that sense of confidence, right? Exactly. So it's that deep contemplation around where we get all these feelings of success, failure, the little voices that sit on our shoulders and tell us what's real and what's not real. And I find that to be very interesting. So very important to define what failure and success mean to us. And, some people have, as we know, fear of failure. Some people equally have what that fear of success is.
Yeah.
And the book is actually a long story about, celebrating success one failure at a time, because I originally had the thought for the book in 2015. I interviewed my first entrepreneur in 2015 and kept putting it off, and we talked in the original episode about perfection and what that might look like. And for me, it was never going to be perfect. So I just kept procrastinating and putting the book off until, as we mentioned, I actually dealt with what perfection and failure meant to me. And I got over myself, and within 8 months, the book was finished, edited, and released. So and that's the power that you have when you can deal with the failures that you perceive that you've had, and then decide that, well, here's my definition of success. So my definition of success was actually getting the book out. I don't care how many it sells or how many people read it, or, I really hope that it inspires people to become entrepreneurs and to chase an entrepreneurial dream, to chase their moonshot. But for me, the big success is actually getting the book into print after all that time.
And I love that you spoke about that as well, because it takes a lot for us to redefine what failure means to us. Excuse me. I know it held me back for at least 2 years, where I thought I failed big time, and I was angry. I was angry at myself, and I was angry at everyone. And it only took literally just it was a coaching session actually, that just allowed me to switch my mindset around and switch that perspective and realize that's not a failure. That was a learning opportunity. And so thus, since then, I don't even use the word fail anymore, failure. I realized that, as you were saying earlier as well, that 0.1% about me as a person was, I get knocked down 7 times, I get up 8. There's this sense of perseverance that is just about, I didn't fail. Like, the interview you had, I didn't fail. I did take no, I found another way. I didn't, of course, then frame it that way. I thought I failed and I just have to do something else. But this is it. And that's why I love talking about the concept of subjective success as well, because success means different things to different people. And we are conditioned, as you were talking about the conditioning and the voices in our head and the imposter syndrome. And for me, I dubbed it the not good enough syndrome, that we're conditioned by society that this is what success means, this is what failure means. And once you fail and then you succeed, the graph goes up exponentially. And that's not the case. I'm sure your interviews would show that it's the ups and downs, but the point is to keep moving forward and with slight sustainable growth along the way.
Absolutely. And, a very good example of that. So even if I the whole purpose of interviewing the particular entrepreneurs I did was because they weren't at that, they weren't the Amazons and they weren't the Googles, they weren't the top echelon unicorns, but these are people who had an idea, they had a dream, they pursued it, and they've made a really, successful life living and improved the lives of many other people through their entrepreneurial ventures, right? So we used to pull students aside and say, what is your definition of success? So, we didn't talk about failure, but we talked about the definition of success. And there was a particular group of music enthusiasts, and they were performers. And it was like, do you want to be a musician who becomes famous, to whatever level of fame, we equate fame to, do you want to be Harry Styles, or do you want to be, any of the other, Pink or whoever, or do you want to have a really comfortable life as a musician, playing music, making people happy? Like, where do you sit on that success, on the success scale? And it's quite remarkable because, even the JFK story when JFK went to NASA and said to the janitor, what do you do here? And the janitor said, I'm helping put a man on the moon, and it was that so very much comfortable in what he was doing, knowing that he was creating an environment for people that was safe, and that they could then do all their work in, which was, how successful is that? It takes every single one of us in order to do that. And I really like, so there's an organization I've been very blessed to visit in Vegas. Let me just make it very clear that Vegas and I don't really get on. But Zappos is headquartered in Vegas. So we had a tour of Zappos, and in order to, at one point in time, I'm not sure if they still do it, but when you were onboarded as an employee at Zappos, you had to spend time in every single area. so that even if you were employed as the head marketing person, you had to go and be in packaging, you had to go and spend time on the phone, you had to go and spend time in tech, because so that you would know how interrelated everything was, and every piece of that line was or determined the success of the organization. And I think that's really important, to know that every single one of us is a cog in the journey of success for ourselves and for other people. So, you know, I love what you said then about success, and that failure isn't on your radar. Because just imagine if we fell, you know, the first time we rode a bike, or the first time we tried to walk or whatever, and everyone went, oh my God, you failed, stay down, never get back up, because you've totally failed the whole concept of walking or riding a bike. Where would we be? As children, we get up and we do it again and again and again. And the most amazing entrepreneurs, I was reading something the other day that said statistically, a successful entrepreneur has actually gone bankrupt twice. And I went, oh, I'd never heard that before. And can I just say that I haven't validated that statement? I know it wouldn't surprise me either, but I haven't delved into the research to know whether that's a true statement or not, but it wouldn't surprise me. And it's that, exactly as you said, you get knocked down 7 times, you get back up 8.
Yeah. You spoke of the concept of moonshot, and I love that because I can visualize it, but I'd love to know more from your perspective what it means.
So before I joined Singularity University, so I'm very much affiliated with the organization. But before I joined the organization, I used to call it pie in the sky thinking, or fat chance thinking. And then I went to an executive program at Singularity, and they called it Moonshot. And I went, oh, that's much nicer than pie in the sky or fat chance. But it's that whole concept of dream big. What is your North Star? What is that purpose? What is it that you want to achieve? And then go for it. Because if you don't go for it, then you're not really being true to who you are. So, there's been many examples of moonshots. There's been many examples of moonshots that have failed. But, even the Wright brothers, when they built the first aeroplane, it was failure after failure after failure. And my colleague David Roberts actually tells a story of the inspiration for that. So their father went away. When he came back, he bought them a toy, and it was one of those spiral things, and they pulled a lever on it, and it kind of spiraled up. And that apparently is what gave them the inspiration to build a flying machine. So you never know. Again, you never know what triggers somebody to have a moonshot. But a moonshot is something that you don't know how you're going to make it happen, but you just know that you're going to, and you really aspire to do that. So, and for me, even if you don't reach the end goal of the moonshot and you get halfway there, wow, that is such a huge improvement from where we are now. For example, I think AR, VR, the whole gaming industry. We started out as this game perspective, but now if you look at how it's infiltrated into medicine and many education, many different fields. And I was actually presenting to a group of corporates, and we were talking about the moonshot of operating from somewhere in a different country to somewhere in a remote location. And somebody in the workshop said, that's happened to me. And I went, please tell us your story, because I had known there were many examples of this story. And she said that she had an aneurysm. She was in a little country town in Australia, and the only reason that she's still alive is because a surgeon in Singapore was called to his Zoom meeting control and directed the operation, which was something that never ever would have happened many years ago. And we take technology for granted so much.
That's true.
But all this thing that was in the land of gaming, which television screens or huge screens, interactions, etc., they were in the land, and now they've infiltrated into medicine, into health, into environment, into sustainability, and it's quite remarkable. And these were once moonshots. The phone was once somebody's moonshot. The car was once somebody's moonshot. The
iPod and Steve Jobs
going into outer space. Yeah. All were moonshots, and look how far we've come. And some people would go, oh yeah, well, everything that technology does isn't good. And I go, well, actually, technology's got nothing to do with it. It's the humans and how you use it.
Exactly.
That determines. Yeah. So
and I love
moonshot thinking.
Go ahead.
Well, moonshot thinking is it's what pushes us. It's what, somebody said, there was my other favorite, I've got many. One of my other favorite examples of moonshot is somebody said once, why can't in poor countries, why can't we just create water out of thin air? And then somewhere along the line that triggered someone to go, hang on, air, oxygen, water, H2O. How do I create? There are machines in India now placed in places where there is no clean water that create water out of thin air, and people can go and get drinking water, and I find things like that remarkable. Drones carrying medicines into remote areas and testing capabilities for medicine into remote areas. There was a moonshot, an X Prize moonshot, and they said we want to teach children in third world countries basic literacy, basic numeracy in 18 months, no adult intervention, through an app. And people are doing it. And these children in third world, the only adult intervention is the adult at the end of the day plugs the devices in that have been donated by, people like Bill Gates, etc. And these children are learning how basic literacy, basic numeracy off very simple apps. And education and clean water are two of the most important things that we can give people to have a really good start in life. And these were moonshots. These were mad, crazy ideas that people weren't quite sure how they were going to do.
Les Brown has this statement is like, shoot for the moon, and even if you miss, you're going to land among the stars. And I think this is it.
Yeah.
And I know that moonshot intimidates us, as you said, because of all the clutter and the noise around it. And a couple of years ago, I realized that was one of the loudest voices inside my head. Was every time I had a moonshot dream, the voice in my head called it or dubbed it audacious, as an audacious dream. And then, who do you think you are, followed through. And now every time that is triggered, I have to reframe it for myself. I'm like, I'm Hanan, and I'm unique just as much as 8 billion people are unique in the world. And I can do it. It's just, it takes time. It takes a lot of perseverance. It takes 1,000 steps. But I know that I'm on step 2, 3, 5 of it. And it's no longer as audacious as it was framed in my head because of the conditioning and everything around me.
I love that. And isn't it so? Jim Collins actually says, have a big, hairy, audacious goal. His equivalent of a moonshot is a big, hairy, audacious goal. So all these, I think we're being given permission now. And as you say, we're being giving ourselves permission to have that dream, because we realize what's possible. 6 months ago, we never would have been having the conversations around ChatGPT that we're having now. And, people go, oh, look, it's bad. It's going to be the end. Professors are going, oh, plagiarism. My answer to the professors is, why are you worried about plagiarism? Why aren't you teaching people how to use a tool? Because it's, we had the same conversations when the mobile phones came out. We had the same conversations when the internet came out. When the car came. Oh, it's going to be bad. No one's going to do anything. And now where would we be without the internet? Where would we be without our mobile phones? Where would, and that doesn't mean that people are living, some people are living completely within that technology, but it's also enlightening us to what is outside of our technology. It's just this assimilation of things into our lives. But, I think for me, if we can create good humans, then we don't have to, and that there's a judgment in that. And I don't, as I said before, I don't really like judgment, but if we can bring out the best in people, if we can bring out the kindness, the compassion, the love in people, then we don't really need to be worried that people will do, use all these things
and abuse
for
it.
ill results. They'll use them to fulfill their moonshots.
That's true.
So, and I've got a colleague who says we can't call it moonshot anymore. We've been to Mars. We now need to call it beyond Mars shot. So, it's interesting.
The universal shot.
I think that actually may be what he said, but that's a very good one. Yeah.
Well, Christina, I can't wrap up the conversation with you without talking about Singularity University and kind of knowing a bit more about what it does and what it stands for.
So for me, SU is utilizing the best of technology. When I first walked into my very first Singularity event, I felt like I had come home because the room was full of optimistic people.
Yeah.
And there were no naysayers in the room. It wasn't, oh no, that can't be done. Or no. It was like, okay, yeah, how are we going to make that happen? So for me, I felt like I had come home, landed. Now, so that was what inspired me around the organization. I had first met a lot of the SU, my colleagues now, my fellow faculty, SU faculty speakers, and I had never been so inspired by their thinking and how they put things together. And it was like this other level of thought processes. And, it wasn't, here's something that might work, but it might not work. And, the big frowns and everything. Yeah. It was, this can work. How do we make it work together? How do we collaborate? And for me now, so my saying around the work that I do within the organization is that, that I live at the intersection of the values of humanity with the value of technology, and that humanity comes first, and how does the technology serve humanity? So, there's the traditional idea about the singularity where it's, it's uploading consciousness and we all become part of the big supercomputer, which I say to people, well, kind of aren't we that now? Because every time you open one of your devices or you log onto something, somebody somewhere knows something else about you. So, and then there's that whole fear behind that. And I go, well, I don't really have anything to hide. So I don't want to be hacked, and I don't want to have my identity stolen. And those kinds of things are very, they're very validated. They're happening. I know somebody who had their identity stolen. It's taken them 2 to 3 years of mainly psychological trauma, but also the physicalness of what they've, the physicality of what they've had to go through. So I'm not saying that it doesn't exist. But for me, it's that what does it give us the opportunity to create, and what is it? How do we help? Peter Diamandis says, you want to be a billionaire, help a billion people. If you're not helping people every day, then you're not really fulfilling what that purpose is, what that function is. So for me, it's that how do we get it out there using technology, but technology serves the humanity of what we want to do. So how do we teach more people? How do we help more people? How do we create better health for people? How do we do that? In order to empower, going back to your word, empower everybody on the planet.
I love that. This has been an extremely empowering conversation. And, my mind is always, after our conversation, my mind is always buzzing. I'm like, we've got to talk more about this, and that. I can see us. I love the work that you do. And I know that you've got massive impact creating and recreating how people think, how people frame their reality, and how to use technology in a great way that is empowering. So thank you so much again for sharing your knowledge, your experience, and your energy.
Thank you. And the feeling's mutual. And I know that we will be doing lots of work together.
Thank you, Christina. Well, as you know, the show notes will include how to get in touch with Christina, follow her. There's tons of amazing content out there. And she delivers a lot of amazing keynotes and workshops and panels and discussions and everything. So make sure to check it out. And as always, empower yourself for your moonshot or your universe shot or wherever you want to go. Think big, act small, and that's okay. And please join us and keep showing up for you and for the world and for the impact you are meant to serve. As always, wishing you love, abundance, and prosperity. And we're going to see you next time. Bye for now. Thank you for listening to the Empowered to Grow podcast. For further engagement with a tribe of empowered women, join my Facebook group, Empowered to Grow, or visit my website, www.hananulbasha.com. I'll catch you on the next episode. And until then, know that empowered you empowers others. Love, abundance, and prosperity to you all.